Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order.
The City of San Clemente respects the many people of different faiths who reside here. The City Council historically begins its session with an invocation offered by one of the religious leaders of our community with full appreciation of our shared belief that we are one nation under God. And while the City cannot endorse any particular religion, we respect the religious freedom and freedom of expression of all our citizens to pray as they feel led to pray. This evening's invocation will be given by Don Kapoff, chaplain with the Orange County Sheriff Department.
Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for Councilmember Swartz, who will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for San Clemente. We thank you for the absolute gift to be able to live here, to call it home. We ask, Father, that you would protect us, protect the citizens, protect our families, keep our children safe and healthy, our grandkids safe and healthy. We ask that your hand would be upon every aspect of the city, that you would keep the people that give their lives to the city in the form of policemen and firemen and city council members, city staff. You keep them safe and healthy as well. And for tonight, Father, for this agenda, we ask that decisions will be made that best suit the majority of the people, and that your agenda for our lives will be interwoven with the agenda of the city. In Jesus' name, amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Doncheck. Councilmember Ham. Here. Councilmember Swartz.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Here.
Mayor Ward.
Here.
First item on the agenda is an update concerning the proposed toll road.
Yeah.
Mayor, if I could, there's some action taken in closed session, which was to authorize the city attorney to file a lawsuit challenging the TCA decision or any work in furtherance of SR 241 toll road alignment that involves the territory of the city of San Clemente. And so we have council's authorization to prepare and file those actions against appropriate parties, which will be disclosed when those actions are filed.
Okay. Thank you. I would also like to tell the council that I had staff put a article at your desk, at your chairs. It talks about, I just want to say in response, I wanted to let you know that in response to all of our residents and residents from the county saying that TCA should be abolished, an article has come out accusing OCTA and California Department of Transportation for a money grab, and that's why there is some talk of TCA being abolished. So I just wanted you to be aware of that article that was in the Orange County Register on Sunday, and that's why it's at your desk. So with that, we can take public comments. First person, Anthony Lafrano, followed by Michelle Schumacher, if you will line up, followed by Mark McGuire, followed by Ava O'Keefe.
Just for a point of clarity, is this oral communications part one or are these comment cards on the toll road?
These are on the toll road.
Okay.
Thank you. Yours is on the toll road, isn't it?
I have two. One
Okay,
oral
let's do the first one on the toll road.
communication,
Okay.
the toll road first,
Thank
and
you.
then-
Okay.
Good evening. Lori's pretty smart. Lori, have you heard of O'Shaughnessy Dam? O'Shaughnessy Dam. No. AKA Hetch Hetchy. It's a dam in the Yosemite Valley, and they had to dam up Yosemite Valley, and it basically ruined the valley. And they built the dam in the 1920s to basically water the city of San Francisco, which arguably is, I guess, kind of noble, but still ruined the valley. The toll road is our Hetch Hetchy on steroids times 10. Okay, so we have to fight this. This is war. The TCA, they fight dirty. They're dirty people. And we don't need to fight dirty, but we need to fight fire with fire. And the only reason why Surf Rider won was because they beat him in court. And we got to beat them in court. And we can have all the rallies we want and all the protests we want, but the only way to beat these guys is in court. One more thing that's been on my mind. You can't be against the toll road and for districting. These two issues are mutually exclusive. You cannot be for districting and against the toll road. Because these guys will come in and they'll buy the town, and they've got lots of time. TCA has lots of time. I lived in Newport Beach back in the 1980s when they were just starting to shovel the 73 off of Bristol and Campus. This thing is a slow-moving beast, and they've got nothing but time. So you cannot be for districting and against the toll road. Pick a position. They're mutually exclusive. They will buy this city, period. Again, I did not come to speak on this topic, but I think it's very important that I basically address the fact that this will kill the town. So it's all hands on deck. Everybody needs to pitch in. Everybody needs to get behind the issue, and we have to stop it at all costs. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I want to start by thanking you all. I just am so thankful that the entire city council is unanimous in opposing the toll road. It's, you know, our strength at Not My Toll Road is growing. We're growing in numbers. We're getting a lot of people who are very active, and I just can't even say if the city council was not in line with protecting our town, I would be heartbroken. So I'm so thankful for everything you're doing, all the protective measures. You just made my night with kind of a recap of the closed session. You know, and I think everyone would probably support a small tax to fund litigation that's very aggressive and just maybe the most gnarly attorneys, the most nasty attorneys you could possibly find to make their life a living hell. I don't think any expense should be spared on that. You know, they're here terrorizing our community again after being told no 18 times. I think that in itself warrants a really special kind of attorney. So I hope you will not get anyone who's mild-mannered or soft-spoken but can make their life a living hell. Also, you know, we still really feel that there's this need for education. I don't know if it's possible for the city to hire a PR firm or if we could get another toll road task force and really help just educate residents. There's some confusion out there still about which route is it, you know, wasn't this settled? A lot of people are not on Facebook. And we're doing our best to get into the neighborhoods and really educate and kind of bring people up to speed with the proposed routes. But it would be so awesome if something could be done there. And I guess that's it. Thank you for all of your support and everything you're doing. And let's go crazy and sue them, but really meanly. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Ward, members of the council. I think we do have a mad dog attorney over there, so I feel pretty good, and I know his firm has very capable litigators. So I think that's great news to hear. I also want to thank the council, all members of the council, for being opposed to the toll road and doing everything they can to stop it. I want to thank the people that man the booths at the Ocean Festival, and this group has a lot of energy. I'm really impressed. I'm peripheral player in that. We just came from a meeting involving the TCA with one of the supervisors. We're doing everything we can to make sure that they don't build a head of steam on the alignment that I believe is the alignment that they're pursuing, which is Route 14 that would connect to Pico. And I said I'd come every 2 weeks and I'd take 3 minutes. I've got 2 minutes left. What I want to talk about today is I'm more and more convinced that we can glean through documents what they're trying to do with that connection to 14. And one point that I don't think's been emphasized that's important for us to increase the awareness of is that they want to swing that thing in and make the connection in the middle of the freeway. And they want to do that by having 2 lanes on each side in the middle that would be either 241 toll road or HOT managed lanes down to Vaseline Road. If you look at the 18 Ideas exhibit, the only exhibit that goes all the way down to Vaseline Road is 14, and that's because that's where legislatively the 241 is supposed to start. It tells you that this thing's, you know, from the TCA staff's position, it's cooked. That's what they want to do. And not only do they want to do that, but they want to do it with a middle 2 lanes on each side. To do that, that means 4 lanes have to be built in the south part of the 5 through San Clemente down to Vaseline Road. So People are not aware of that yet, that this thing is going to require widening the 5. So we have to get that information out. I'll just say one other piece that demonstrates that is if you blow up the exhibit in the settlement agreement that focuses on the San Mateo watershed down by Trestles, you blow up that exhibit and you look, it shows in San Clemente 4 lanes plus 2 lanes on each side. Down at the San Diego line, it widens out to 5 lanes plus 2 lanes, which is what they think eventually, sometime after 2050, the San Diego wants to do. I don't think San Diego will pursue that in our lifetimes, or it'll be well past 2050, and only if justified. But you look at that, and you can see that they're already planning that connection all the way down there to Baseline Road. So I hope we can sound the alarms on that as best we can. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Ava O'Keefe. Thank you again for all you're doing for helping us with the toll road. As everyone has said, this is the fight of San Clemente. Wanted to talk a little bit again about the First and Fourth Amendment right violations in the June 5th meeting. And, you know, as many of you know, our things were confiscated. We had to take stickers. We had to sign a ridiculous statement saying that our information was going to be, could be changed, altered. So that was the June 5th meeting. After that, on the Get Moving OC website, all our private information was out for days. Phone numbers, addresses, and actually it was an intimidation tactic. Michelle Schumacher's card was the first one out there. You know, my husband's card, I made all kinds of Hispanic names, I'm sorry, so my information wasn't there. But, so that was outrageous. So we would like if the city can send a very strong worded letter on behalf of the citizens of San Clemente and saying that this is not right. The other thing were the cartoons, you know, that made a fun of us. Basically, one, you know, I was wearing red, so maybe it's a coincidence, and saying, will our homes will be bulldozed? Will our open space be taken? I mean, these are our homes. I mean, this is very personal. And so it did not feel very good, and you will see a lot of emotions here on these First and Fourth Amendment right violations and now these privacy violations. One thing that I don't know if it's possible, I think would be a very good use of taxpayer money to pay Kathy Ward's stipend, so the city of San Clemente does not take, any citizen of San Clemente takes $1 from the TCA, because obviously her time is very valuable. So, you know, I think no one would say no for that. And just wanted to let you know that we have over 6,000 signatures. Their ascertainment study was 45 people. We also conducted a survey during the June 5th meeting. We had 900 and something people, and at a 93% no. So again, we are deeply thankful for everything you're doing, and just keep up the good work. Thank you.
Ava, can you clarify that stipend request? I didn't understand that.
So when she goes to her meetings, she gets paid to be on the board, you know? So the city of San Clemente pays for that instead of, you know, so she can donate if she wants that salary to whatever, you know, it's her favorite, you know, animal charity or something. So, again, just to send another message that San Clemente is just not on board with anything that the TCA is doing.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I have one more card, Dan Bain.
Good evening, Mayor Ward, members of City Council. I wasn't going to speak, but since Mark brought it up, one thing I did want to point out. I've been doing a lot of digging into the legislative history for the 241, as all state routes are. They're codified in statute. So I pulled the 1988 legislative history, and there's actually several maps that show exactly what the alignment was that the state legislature codified. It goes around San Clemente and it terminates at Baseline Road, as Mark said, which connected a lot of dots for me because, as Mark also alluded to, Route 14 is the only route of all the proposed 18 alignments that ends at Baseline Road. There was a lot of talk in the settlement agreement about keeping trestles open during construction. Didn't make a lot of sense to me because I thought, well, the alignment around San Clemente is gone, so why would they have to worry about trestles? Buried in the settlement agreement at the end is actually an engineering rendering of the trestles area. And if you look down at it, it's actually, I think it's Exhibit 2 as part of the settlement. It shows the hot lanes going through the 5. It shows all the work that's going to be done. And this is one of several engineering renderings that I'm sure are already prepared and at the TCA that they haven't disclosed yet. So any notion that the TCA has not already thought out this route and doesn't know what the route's going to be is bogus. I mean, they've clearly talked about this through the settlement negotiations. They clearly have the engineering drawings done. In fact, in the fine print, it says SSOC MXD, which is the project name. So they prepared all of these renderings for that project. So, I mean, it's no longer connecting dots. It's pretty obvious that it's Route 14. So anybody in the community that wants these documents, they're on the city website. I'm happy to share them with the city so they can see the legislative history, but that notion should be gone at this point. Thank you.
One more card.
Sorry, Mayor.
Mr. Hirschman.
Mayor Ward and council, good evening. I wasn't going to speak, and it dawned on me that something came up today, and that is many of us got our statements from the TCA this past week, and it seems as though a number of us have been overcharged just in a community, have been overcharged. They can put a stipend in to replenish. And the replenishment is supposed to be approximately $30. Some people have gotten replenishment up to $125. And when calling the TCA, they're finding out that the reason they're doing it is because they have to make their cash flows. Why do they have to make their cash flows? They have to make their cash flows because they have to tell their rating agencies and their bondholders that they really are making money, which is another scam, which is horrible. Again, just showing what kind of people we're dealing with here. And I just wanted to alert the city. I think we've seen it online with people basically have gone online to tell us that their statements were so bogus and so horrible that when they called in, but if you don't call in, it stands. And then they've got the money to show that they can make their cash flows. So that was just a thought, just to alert everybody in the city to look at their statements and make sure they look online as well. Thank you very much for the time.
Members of the audience who wish to address council.
That was it. Yeah.
Members of the audience who wish to address council on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the City of San Clemente, but not separately listed on the agenda, may do so during the oral communications portion of the meeting. A total time limitation of 30 minutes is allocated for oral communications part 1, with each speaker being allotted 3 minutes in which to give his or her presentation.
Okay. We have a few cards. First speaker would be Brenda Wells, followed by Amanda Quintana and Anthony Lafrano. I said Quintanilla. Hi, Brenda.
Hello. I'm here to talk about a totally different kind of traffic. But before I get there, I want to say thank you to the City Council for reappointing me to the Human Affairs Committee. I hadn't been there long enough to make any mistakes, so I'm glad that you are giving me another chance. But tonight I'm here firmly in my role as the I-5 Freedom Network, and our goal to address human trafficking and exploitation as it affects us locally, countywide, and in the state. What I'm talking about today is massage establishments. You may or may not be surprised to know that I did a quick search, and we have a list of 8 massage establishments in San Clemente on a website called rubmaps.com, and their tagline is Massage Parlor Reviews, Your Happy Ending Erotic Massage Location. And we have 8. Of those 8, 5 have permits in the city. Now, what I'm proposing is that we make some amendments. Now, the ordinances that we already have are really great, closing at 9 and certain things like that. The problem is they're not enforced because most of the citizens don't know that they have the opportunity to call. We're adjusting this at the code enforcement possibility rather than law enforcement, because we know that that is a a resource constrained area. So I got on board with a couple of other massage therapists to make sure that their requests or the suggestions I'm making help them and separate them from the illicit massage establishments that we're trying to address. So some of those include, and again, the first place I went for my research was the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force. And they directed me to Garden Grove and Huntington Beach as two cities who've made really great changes for their massage parlor, massage establishment ordinances that have been effective and cost virtually nothing. It was just an opportunity to have more leverage against what we're trying to address here. So some of those changes include something simple as easy, making sure that lights, neon light blight type stuff is off at 9. Now right now on El Camino Real, there's a handful, their lights are on all night long. We already have the ordinance says that they're the windows are supposed to be transparent. Well, there are darked out windows, and curtains that are permanently, closing off the visibility. Those are things that if we can get the word out, that we can address this problem through code compliance and enforcement that way. Other things include, the entrance be well lit at all times, even at night, so there's no. So safety for the people coming in and out, and that we can see any kind of people coming in and out at the wrong hours. That a big one that has been really effective deterrent these other cities include getting the owners of that property to say they know that this is an establishment, and if they get their license revoked, they can't rent out for another 2 years, so they can't just change names. So I'm going to submit this for a request to put on the agenda to vote at a future date. This includes the list of massage parlors I talked about, plus my suggestion for ordinances. Thank you very much.
So I met with Brenda on this topic, and in addition to, and there's some overlap, the city has at least 10 establishments, 10 to 15 establishments that are licensed currently. But I will put this on the agenda and see if we can sharpen our massage parlor ordinance if I've got consensus here.
Lori, before you do that, maybe I misheard you speaking at the beginning of your 3 minutes, but did you say the Human Affairs Committee has already ratified this, or they have not?
No, I was just thanking you for being reappointed. I'm here as a representative for the I-5. This is a separate thing.
What do you think about just having the Human Affairs Committee go through the nuts and bolts of it?
I love that idea. With the intention that it would then come forward to City Council. Yeah, excellent idea.
I just want to, that's not going to concern any kind of conflict of interest with my role as the I-5 and being on the Human Affairs Committee.
No, it just means you have a specialty. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's an important one. So, and thank you for taking that step of benchmarking the best practices in other cities. That's really useful.
All right.
Okay, so take it to Human Affairs, and then it comes back to Council and with revisions to an ordinance if appropriate.
Do you just want to make a direction that we direct Human Affairs to review this item, and then we'll make a motion and vote on that? That way it's prioritized.
Can we vote on that prior? Can we vote on that now?
No, it's not.
We have to agendize it to vote on it.
It doesn't require a vote
It's
for us
just
to
direction.
send it.
I
to
think
Human
just
Affairs.
to ask them to initiate it is fine.
Okay,
It's just
there you go.
putting it on their
Send it
agenda.
and then it'll perk back up to
Yeah,
us
it's
with
a
your
future agenda schedule.
recommendation. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Amanda, followed by Anthony Lafrano.
Hi, yes, my name is Amanda Quintanilla, and I'm a resident of San Clemente for the last 46 years and other years in Capo. I've sent emails to all city council members and regarding the landscape medians and the traffic concerns at North El Camino Real. Thank you, Mayor Ward, for getting back to me on that, and it's my understanding that there are still remaining items that need to be addressed or resolved. I've submitted pictures to you also in person here and then via email. I want to discuss the recent incident on Sunday, July the 16th, and it's not attributed to the construction. There were two people at the landscape median waiting to cross over, and they didn't, want to walk to the crosswalk and walk where it's safe. The landscape median is too inviting to people, and that has been my point from the beginning. It's not a deterrent for people to avoid it. When the K-rails were on the other side of El Camino Real, I didn't see anybody climbing over to get to the other side. Just yesterday, there was a car that drove down the bike lane, which was protected by the landscape median, and this is dangerous for everyone. This just happened yesterday, and there's video proof of that, and I think I forwarded that link to you as well, and there's a picture of the red car there. There have been motorcycles that have been roaring down the bike lane since there's not enough room where the lane splits off, and they use the bike lane instead. People are confused where to go since there are no arrows at the former right-hand turn lane onto Camino Capistrano. People have gone into the Arco station because there are no arrows showing the lane has merged. Also, there have been reports that there are no dotted lines on the bike lanes for vehicles to turn into the mobile home park. Also, there's not enough room for them to turn into that area. On July 7th, people had to hop out of the way to avoid getting hit by a car. Then the car was turning and the car that was turning almost got rear-ended as well. There have been many complaints regarding the line of cars on Camino Capistrano or on North El Camino Real. This is the result of limited space at the new right-hand lane that goes around the bulb out, turning into Camino Capistrano. These plans do not promote mobility since they are causing accidents, traffic delays, and traffic violations. People are upset at even cyclists that are getting too close to the vehicles, and people are honking at the cyclists. And this is concerned because this is just going to be, it's going to be heightened to road rage, and I don't want any, violence out there. We see, cyclists even today on my way here, going through the back roads down Calle Puente and crossing over, I saw two bicyclists just going through stop signs. But I just want to make sure that something needs to be done about this. These are really serious safety issues. Thank you.
Let me address some of the concerns that Amanda brought.
Oh, sorry. Do you want me to?
Oh, no, I was just going to address some of your concerns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
So I went out there today after you sent that email, I think you sent it yesterday, to look at some of the issues that you brought up. And the first one is that their final striping has not been completed. So a lot of the concerns that you have will be addressed in final striping, and I think that's coming up within the next 10 days. So all those, the bike lane issues and a couple other issues you mentioned are going to be rectified. The other issue is the cars driving in the Class 1 bike lane, the neat video you sent us.
Right, and there's
other stuff.
Right.
So what staff has proposed doing and what they're moving forward with is placing pedestrian bollards at the entrance to those, so it physically prohibits vehicles from entering into the bike lane.
Will there be enough space for strollers? And okay,
absolutely.
I just want to make sure on that.
Yeah, that's a great point. That was one of our concerns.
Okay,
and then the
great.
final one as well that we talked about today, because doing a site visit, is the area directly west of the intersection of Camino Capistrano and PCH. When you transition from Dana Point to San Clemente, there's kind of a no man's land that exists there, and it's very confusing to motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists, and so we're going to do some sort of striping arrangement out there as well to help encourage people to stay in the Class 1 bike lane so that those bicyclists are not floating out into the roadway, and then those same vehicles are not floating out of the roadway into the bicycle lane as well.
Right, I know there was some, I guess, a family that was crossing over on the crosswalk, and there was concern because someone was going to go into and possibly hit them.
Yeah, and I had those same concerns today, and so
Yeah.
hopefully with those mentioned changes, we'll see some positive benefits. But as we move forward, just like I said, I've been a proponent of this project, and bear with us until we get through construction. Let's see how this thing works out, and hopefully at the end it'll be a much better roadway that we have now than we had previously. So I'm still hopeful that it's going to be an excellent addition to our community. We just need to wait till it's completed. So I thank you for bringing those concerns, just like the concerns that were brought to me at the forum that I held a few months ago. The community always has great input, and because of that great input, we make positive changes. And so thank you for bringing these issues up.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I emailed a couple of you a couple of times, but I didn't get a response back. So that's why, I'm really thankful that Mayor Ward emailed me back, and then I'm here to talk. But thank you so much.
My apologies. We're getting about 50 emails a day about, I want a toll road, I don't want a toll road, I want a toll road, so.
Well, there was a
some get lost.
2,000-word limit, though, too, and then that was a concern, which is only like a page and a half or so. So thank you so much.
Thanks for
And-
bringing your concerns and your ideas.
All right, thank you so much. All right, bye.
Those bollards need to have enough room so someone like me isn't going to T-bone on them. Yeah. Okay. I'm in that bike lane a lot.
I love driving in the bike lane today. I made it to Costco in 4 minutes.
Okay, we'll start your time when you start
Okay.
talking.
This is my campaign. A campaign is an activity that generates a result. Let's keep Pico clean. We have people camping on Pico from I-5 to Hermosa. They're camping typically on the north side of Pico, and my issue is the fact that my daughter is starting high school there in a month, and we just got to keep, you just can't camp that close to the high school. I don't care where they go. Send them down to the trestles, just send them away from Pico. Okay, we can't have people camping on Pico. Do I control the next slide with the mouse? Oh, okay, thank you. Camping is illegal in San Clemente. You're not allowed to camp here. If you want to camp, go to Doheny and pay whatever they charge. Whatever happened to standards? We have to have higher standards as a city. We don't want to turn into Santa Monica or Venice Beach. Okay, this is kind of more of a conservative town. You go up to San Francisco, go up to LA, go to the LA beaches, see what a progressive liberal town looks like. We can't let this happen here, at least on Pico, that close to our high school. There's too many transients next to the high school. Who remembers Elizabeth Smart? Little girl in Utah was kidnapped by transients and held in an encampment for 9 months. Luckily they found her, but her life will never be the same. We don't know who these people are that are camping here, and that is dangerous. Allowing camping on Pico is not smart. It's a fire hazard. Our previous sheriff said that they're drug dealers. So you've got a fire hazard and drug dealers and God knows what else that close to our high school. We can put our head in the sand and say there's nothing we can do about it, or we can do something about it before a child gets hurt. I've identified 5 hot spots. Clear the brush, have the deputies do a drive-by every morning for a quick horn blast. Do this for a week. We got to have something. We need some sort of action to figure this out. Who runs the city? The people run the city through our elected officials, but at the end of the day, the city manager, this good-looking guy right here, is in charge of the city. And so it would seem like the city manager can call the property owners of Marblehead and Rancho San Clemente and work with the sheriff's department on an ongoing basis to figure out a solution. I would suggest we do that immediately. The 2 campsites that the first one that I want to concentrate on is camp number 1. This one is directly across from the mobile station, directly across from Lowe's. It is on Pico and Veracruz. It's where that skull was found a couple weeks ago. It's active right now. It's live. I just drove past it recently. This is how you get there. This is Pico and Amancero. There's a gate. It goes down into the campsite. There are bikes there. There are tents there right now. It is a hazard, fire hazard. Camp number 3 is active right now. That is just down the road on the left side. I would hope that we can focus on Camp 3 and Camp 1 before the next meeting. That's what an encampment looks like. Can we please do, pardon me, they're all stolen bikes. This one is recently. This one is off of the the police services website. It's not me. These guys, and they just arrested 2 in Walmart for stealing in backpacks. I live up there. They ride around on their bikes with their backpacks on, and you can call them homeless all you want. These guys are thieves, they're drug addicts, and if you're able to ride a bike, you're able to get a job. We got to kick these guys off. They can't stay on Pico. They can't camp out on Pico across from our high school where our kids go to school. We just got to stop. I don't care where they go. So I'll be back. I'm actively checking these encampments. I support our city manager. I support our city. I support our sheriff's department. Let's please work as a team to clean up Pico. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anthony, this would be a great topic to bring up at our next Public Safety Task Force meeting, which is August 18th.
I couldn't make the last one, unfortunately. I was out.
Yeah.
August what?
August 18th at the community center.
In fact, I was going to bring that up. The task force already addressed started to address how we're going to be dealing with the homeless, what can we do, and we're all looking into, and it's one of our hot topics as far as what we're looking into, to what we can legally do, what we can't do, and to try to have as much as we can to influence the movement of the homeless outside of our city. So, but we're limited in what we can or can't do. We have some good interactions with FAM in helping to do that, and we're working on the procedures.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tony. We will give those areas out to Lowe's. Yes, and Lowe's is one of the owners. And that, okay. All right, that's the end of oral communications.
Can we have a motion to waive reading in full of all
So moved.
resolutions and ordinances?
Motion by Brown, second by Ham, all in favor? Passes 5-0.
Closed session report, City Attorney.
Thanks, Joanne. There was some action taken tonight in closed session that is reportable. I already reported on the council's authorization to file a lawsuit. In addition to that, in the dual diagnosis case, the city council voted to authorize engagement of separate counsel where desired to assist individual defendant council members and former council members in depositions covered in that case. Depositions have been noticed for council members Donchek, Ham, and Ward, and former council member Baker, so they would have the opportunity to have the cost of separate counsel for those depositions paid by the city. In these votes, council members Donchek, Ham, and Ward abstained in the vote to make separate counsel available in their own depositions. And the remainder of the council voted unanimously in favor of that opportunity. We're also required to announce this evening that in a closed session held on April 4th, the City Council approved a settlement agreement in a workers' compensation case, and the terms of that agreement were approved and executed this week. And the authorized public portions of that agreement are available for public inspection.
All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion unless council staff or the public requests removal of an item for separate discussion and action. I have not received any cards or requests for removal.
Tim?
I don't have anything.
Chris?
Nope.
Lori?
Motion to move the consent
What?
calendar. Oh.
Hold on. I wish I could say. I'm going to pull. I'm going to be. The mayor traditionally does this, right? It's Bob. I have just a couple quick questions, and I'm going to pull 6B3 and 6G.
Hold on, before you do that, Laura, you're going to move the balance?
Then I'll move the balance.
Second.
Motion by Donchek, second by Brown. All in favor? Passes 5-0. 6B3, and I think I saw Cecilia. Did she leave?
I'm sorry, Kathy, for the record, what were the two that you're pulling so that we can make sure that
I am
we're clear?
pulling 6B3 and 6G.
6G, so the balance would be all the other items
Yes.
that were not included on that list?
Yes.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure.
I am so sorry. I tried to contact you before this. This has to do with the zoning administrator minutes, and it's the approval of the Pacific Building patio.
Yes.
And that's at 120 South El Camino Real.
Yes.
Remind me again, which building is that? Is that the Art Deco building that's at the corner of, is it Granada and El Camino?
Directly adjacent to the Marlow building, pretty sure, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Between the Marlow building.
Okay, so this is a patio in the, behind the building.
Yes.
In the alley.
Yes.
And one comment that got to me, because it's really surprising, is it said that this patio would only be used for employees. And to me, that's not what I've been told, that this patio and why we're doing it is part of the beautification of the alleyway, and I think for the bowl, that restaurant is expanding that's there. It's Rice Bowl something. Okay, so it's just not what I've heard, and I'm wondering why that comment is in there, that it's only for employees.
Yeah, there is a business in there that is processing some tenant improvements to reconfigure the floor space in that building. the floor plan shows that there is no access to that patio from the business. There is access through the kitchen and
Okay.
the building business, the building's property owner wanted a space on the property that was outdoors for employees to be able to take their breaks and have lunch. And with regard to your comment about the alley and beautification, yes, the council did review a Paseo project that was aimed at making improvements along the alley and making it more pedestrian friendly. So the design of that patio was done with that in mind, so that it's aesthetically interesting.
So later, if that building is reconfigured, the inside, and there isn't access to it, that patio could be used for outdoor dining?
It could be, but again, yes, it could be if they could park it.
Okay.
It could be used for customers, but we'd have to calculate the parking to ensure that they had adequate parking for those additional tables or seating area.
See, I don't want to put you on the spot, but don't we give exemptions for outdoor seating?
We
for
do.
Parking? Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
We do. But it just was interesting, because I thought maybe they were giving up on the plan to try to do a patio out there. But if they can come back to the city and get that permitted in order to have outdoor dining, then I understand. But it just was an odd comment that it's just for employees only. I'm like, why are we building a patio out there? So, okay, that was my question.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else have a comment on it?
Yeah, I need clarification from you. So are you, maybe I misread the minutes, but are you saying they're not going through
No.
with the plan? I thought it was approved by the zoning administrator.
No, it's approved for an outdoor patio only for employees.
Okay.
So that's what I was checking on, because I had heard,
But did you have separate information that they're not now going to move forward with that project? Is that what you're saying?
no.
No.
I have separate information that there was a restaurant, that the Bonsai Boat was trying to remodel and expand and do a patio out there.
Oh.
So that was my information. So when I hear that it's only for employees, I'm wondering why.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that it can be something else later.
If that is a proposal that they want to consider, then we would certainly review
Okay.
it at that time.
Great. I just needed that clarification. I'm sorry. I tried to reach you and I couldn't, so.
That's okay.
With that, I'll move.
Well, before you move the item, I just
Okay.
want to say on the record that as in past and in future projects, I'm always excited about outdoor dining opportunities coming to the downtown, especially if they need to request parking waivers for any type of project like that. I'm always willing to consider those, because I think that's a great opportunity that we should not miss out on.
I have to say that the introduction of the trolleys as well changes a lot of the parking dynamic, for those diners. And so, as
Technology changes.
everything seems to be changing really fast, and I'm getting super old. So it's an interesting thing about how these waivers are coming up. It used to be very controversial because we didn't have these elements to consider, but now that we do, it changes the conversation.
Yeah, as long as you mention that, you see where our trolley ridership pushed up to 55, an average of 55 an hour. So its usage is great, and it should be continuing to do so. I'll be talking later about how we can expand it. So, but you haven't tried it yet, try it. You don't have to worry about parking your car downtown or anywhere else.
Okay, so I move the item. Is there a second? Second. Motion by Ward, second by Brown. All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. And then 6G. G. I wanted to talk to council because part of this includes permitting costs for the netting for the pier. This is a project for geotechnical work and all of that for the pier. But a little part of it, I think 10,000 includes the permit fee. If possible, we're going to look at that netting. Remember, we put that in our budget? I would like the council to consider, and I want maybe direction in this. I understand it's just for the permitting costs, but because of that Falcon program, and I've had some time, I went and looked at some of the pigeons down there and spent some time. We do have some sick ones that are down there that are ill. Instead of the netting program, I would like it not just considered the falcon, whether to keep them from roosting, but consider rehoming them and the falcon program to keep them off in lieu of the netting, possibly. And I know you're going to be looking at that, but I want to the rehoming as part of this, because it would take some care of some of the sick birds that are out there.
So you're saying not to do the netting and do rehoming?
I would like that considered as a direction that
What
staff
would
looks at
happen?
that more seriously.
What would happen if they decide to move back in?
The Falcon program would prevent them from being able to feel safe there. And if any did move back in, I think we should look at the birth control that we dropped years ago. But
The one that dropped all the pigeons.
Well, that was not what we're looking at now. But I think the netting is a really temporary solution, and it's not going to look attractive when it breaks down. And I think we have a problem now at the pier that needs to be addressed. I mean, we need a solution sooner than later.
I think doing both would be a great idea.
But I think the netting was like $300,000.
The project is out to bid. I think it's opening later this week or early next week. So staff will have a price on the netting. Staff is planning on coming back to council next month for award of the pier, and then also further discussion on the falconeering potentially as well.
So why don't we just table that portion of it till
But I
then?
would, because I'm trying to give them direction that I want them to look at the rehoming, the actual removing of the current pigeons and the falcon program, not just preventing the falcons from roosting at night. Or, I'm sorry, the pigeons from roosting at night. We're talking different birds here, but that's all that's in here now, and so we kind of gave them that direction in the budget.
Well, how much more would a rehoming program cost?
Well, we don't have that. That's why I'm asking that be included in what they look at.
I think we can talk about this when it comes back, but we were a 4-1 on this one, weren't we?
You were 4-0
4-1.
because I was absent.
A 4-0.
It was during the budget meeting.
It was budget.
Yeah, it was 3-1. So
Oh,
I guess we can look at it again when it comes back. I'm more inclined towards the netting and falcon position. I don't know if my opinion has changed on that. So-
And what I'm just saying, if you want to push off the 10 grand and not spend it now on the permit, and then re-look at it when we're going to.
I don't think we're spending it. I think we're just budgeting it in here. It was just a chance to talk about that. I was going to ask for it to come back to council anyway and us to consider looking at other options, because we're being asked now to solve the pigeon problem, and I'm not sure this is going to do it.
We'll do some research into the rehoming idea and see what that entails, what it costs, what the effectiveness is, how it's been done, or if it's been done in other places. And I'll get you an email, a memo or something as soon as we get some information. But we can do some research into that, and we'll just keep moving forward with the project as we have lined up. We'll get the bids for the netting, and we won't commit to anything until we get you all the information.
Yeah, I think we can go back to World War I when pigeons showed that they can find their way home even if you relocate them for quite a way. So I'd like to know what the success has been in re-nesting
I think when
them.
we voted on the budget, the Falcon gal came in and talked about some things, but we never heard really what it was entailed.
And you've been consistent about wanting to be humane with the
Yeah.
birds. I mean, this is
Right.
not the first time
And
you've brought
people-
that up.
Yeah, and people do that. They do take care of them when they rehome them. They don't allow them to leave. So there is someone we're paying to take them. So, okay.
But we can discuss it when it comes back to us.
All right. All right. So with that, I'll move G. Motion by Ward, second by Ham. All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. Okay. Thank you.
Next is a report from the Public Works Director, City Engineer, concerning the possibility of constructing a block wall along the rear property line of selected properties adjacent to Camino del Rio.
Good evening, Mayor Ward and members of the City Council. Tom Vonnegut, Public Works Director. The item is here tonight before you at the request of Mayor Pro Tem Tim Brown. I've put together information requested to help you deliberate and provide guidance to staff. So I'm here to answer any questions you have about the item before you in the proposed block wall.
As someone that actually moved into that area almost 23 years ago when it was just a beginning, just so everyone understands, Del Rio was always planned to go through, and everyone that bought their homes there bought them with the map showing that that road was going through. Now, as far as mitigation traffic and mitigating sound, I'm open ears for that. But it shouldn't be a surprise that we have through traffic on a road that was drawn to go through. I know when I bought my home almost 25 years ago, so.
Do you have to recuse from this?
I think I am far enough away from that part that I don't have to.
That's correct.
Yeah, to me, I brought this item up, so I could probably speak more philosophically about where it was on this one. I think, listen, part of the solution that we developed as a city as a mitigation measure was the rubberized asphalt. And the idea behind me bringing this back is in looking at that stretch of the road, and particularly where that bend is and the velocity, I look at this as not a quote-unquote noise component, although that may be a factor that's ancillary to it. I do believe there's a safety issue here of, the way it's located, the way that pitch on the roadway is there. I had supported the original, so we had rubberized asphalt as one mitigation measure, and the second was a 4-foot high wall, which would in fact provide that factor of safety. And so what I had contemplated is that staff would bring this back, and that we could simply look at doing the additional safety measure, which was, or whatever that additional mitigation measure was. The idea would be, we'll do the 4-foot wall, and then, look and see if it wants to be extended at all, or if it's any higher, do we want residents to contribute to that, or something the city should pick up. But ultimately, to me, it's more of a safety issue with the secondary of sound. I agree with Steve. A lot of folks, and I think Chris has made this point, a lot of folks out there, they knew the road was going to be put through. I think that what we have learned, though, is just the way that roadway banks and the traffic and the speed, that I thought that this would be a worthwhile item to bring forth is more of a safety consideration, and the wall being put there more than anything. So that's why I put this up here, and why I would be.
And would you know, or maybe Tom would know, did all 9 owners agree this was a good idea? And who actually owns the wall? Is it HOA property, or is it city property, or residential?
Sure. So last question first. It's not the city wall. It's either the individual owners of the HOA, and I'm pretty sure it's the individual owners. It might differ by tract in Forester Highlands. I'm a member of that HOA, and I know my decorative fence I own, I'm responsible for maintaining it, so it's not the city, HOA or private. And I'm sorry, your first question was?
I counted, I thought 9, there's 9 parcels, well, maybe there's more, no, there's 9 parcels here. Have all 9 owners agreed that if an improvement was deemed worthwhile, that they want that?
We have not coordinated directly with all 9, but we've received correspondence over the months from certainly most of the people there, and that was a common theme. I don't know if every single one has requested that.
But you would need all 9 to agree to do this?
I would recommend that if you are inclined to give that direction to do it, that it should be all, just for the look of consistency.
Right. Thanks.
And if I'm not mistaken, some of that property could be HOA property that you'd have to go through to get to the fence?
So, yeah, the property between the back of the sidewalk and the owner's rear property line that faces Del Rio, that is owned and maintained by the Forester Highlands Association, the HOA. And so what we would probably do is work with them and just get permission to work from Del Rio as much as possible instead of going through the owner's yards and setting up a work area there.
Okay.
And going through the open space, and then to the extent that any landscaping got damaged, of course, that would get replaced in kind.
Yeah, if we do anything at all, I would, and I agree that I don't have a problem with putting the wall up there, or I think maybe it should have been considered in lieu of, or maybe in conjunction with the rubberized asphalt at the beginning of it. The houses were built pretty close to that spot, and I thought maybe they should have anticipated actually putting in a wall instead of putting in wrought iron for a view what was going to become a street. So, and then the other concern I'd have is I don't want to have the city in the middle of a fight between neighbors of those that want it or don't want it. So we would need a full consensus of everybody to think about moving forward to putting it in.
I think we could get letters of acceptance from all 9 property owners, and if I think I'm hearing the council right, you would want a unanimous 9-0 on that for us to consider moving forward.
Or at least a contiguous portion, even if, say, for example, property owner 9 at the top of the street isn't so hot on it because it's lower, may not need it because of the elevation that the subsequent 8 might, then, you know, you would be able to not have that break.
No
the disruption. Exactly.
Before we get too far into discussion of this item, and if there's no other questions, I'd like to hear from the public, and then we can discuss.
I have a couple questions.
Okay, yeah, I also have 2 more questions.
Okay, all right. Tom, one thing that seems to be missing is I don't hear anything from the HOA on this. I haven't received any emails.
We've received correspondence from
You
the
have?
HOA, and basically transmitting, and that's, we've received correspondence directly from the residents, and then the residents have also been contacting the HOA, and the HOA has been forwarding that under their cover, kind of reiterating the same concerns, asking for the same things. So we have heard from the HOA as well.
But we've never talked to the HOA about any responsibility, doing anything for their property owners?
No, their ask has just mirrored the ask of their member residents, is for the city to do something.
Would it take an easement, if the HOA owns from the curb to that fence line, would it take an easement, an additional easement, for the city to put in a wall there? Because the wall's going to be a lot wider than a wrought iron fence.
What would we, no, it wouldn't. It would just be installed centered on the property line. And so, and this is not different from other properties in Forester Highlands HOA that back up to Del Rio, where you see the block wall. And so we would just do that. It would be centered right on the property line, and as long as the HOA consented, basically gave their administrative approval, didn't put us through a rigorous process and charge fees, just say, go ahead, do it if it meets these guidelines, and yes, you can go through our property. And we would do sort of just a letter agreement on repairing damage and putting it right on the property line.
So real quick, one thing that the property owners would have to consider is that that wall is thicker. It's going to encroach into anything that they've done, any patio, planting, anything of what they've done up to that fence line. Okay.
I actually took a close look the other day after 1 or 2 or 3 of these emails. And basically, the wrought iron does have a footing. And the footing is about the same width as what the wall is going to be.
So the wrought iron's on top
So
of it?
then the wrought iron is on top of the footing, in the center of it. So I don't think we're talking about any issue more than a half inch at the most, I think.
But to Mayor's word point, to the extent that a property owner has some improvements, whether it's a hardscape patio that goes right up to the fence line, to excavate and make room for the wall footing, that may entail either having to move things or, I don't want to say damaging, but we'll have to have an understanding. We'll try and minimize that, but there is a work area that is needed. Not a whole lot, but there is a footing that's going to be a few feet deep. It'll be buried, but to build it, and if there's irrigation or something that backs up, that's going to have to get fixed, and who does that and whatnot. Those are details. We can minimize that, but I haven't done an inventory to see exactly what's there.
Do we have any traffic studies about what the speeds are for?
Well, I believe the sheriff has periodically, and city manager may weigh in.
The Sheriff's Department has had the radar trailer out there, and if I remember correctly, the median speed was 43 miles an hour, and the top speed recorded in any given 24-hour period was about 68 miles an hour. But, and it seemed like in my conversations with the police chief at that time, we were seeing those speeds at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning when there was no one out there. We weren't seeing that during the middle of the day. There were people speeding during the middle of the day, but not at that 60 to 70 mile an hour range.
So that top speed wasn't during the Father's Day race on Del Rio?
We didn't have the speed trailer out there, so on that day to keep track of the speeds for the race.
And then also my question is about the roundabouts that this council approved to control this. Those aren't finished yet?
They're basically done. I mean, they're there, they're constructed, the landscaping is finishing up, and the striping has to be installed, but they're, for all practical purposes, done. I mean, they're the physical obstruction in the roadway at Sarmentosa and at Los Maras.
Okay, so there's no temporary poles out or anything?
We have temporary signs indicating that they're still essentially acting as stops. They'll become yields. That work should complete by next week.
Okay, but we don't have any report of speeds once these have been installed? We don't have that, a current?
We don't have speed data further down Del Rio. The trailers that the city manager is mentioning are usually set up at the upper end of the HOA area as you come down from La Plata and enter the neighborhood and exit.
Okay, okay.
We will have to do a speed survey when the project's done, and that will come back before you, so that'll be required.
Okay. Do you have a question? Lori has. Let Lori go first. Thank you.
Mine are quick. One is building on this speed survey, which is required. When do you do that? If we were going to push this off until we
We'll
get...
do that fairly quickly. We'll work on the timing. We got to get the project done, and then just kind of let things normalize a little bit. So within a few months at most, we expect to be back before you because we've got to certify new
With
speed
that.
limits.
Okay. So we could wait for that, using your word, until things normalize out there? Because I'm out there a lot, too, and the stop signs around the roundabouts and the lack of striping make it kind of a tricky travel right now. My other question, this is probably going to end up being $200,000 if we go forward with it, and it's from a budget called RCFPP, which is restricted for use for the Camino del Rio project. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if this were not approved, where could that money go in that neighborhood?
So if this doesn't happen, the project winds down, that remaining balance that I mentioned in the staff report goes back as unused funds into the RCFPP fund and then would get reprogrammed by your council in a future budget. If you recall, about several years ago, your council updated the RCFPP plan, and so we have now a list of projects that exceeds the fund balance. So we just go back in there, and then you would consider where to direct that money in a future budget.
Okay, thank you.
As one who drives that roundabouts daily, I can say that I'm hoping it improves. There is a lot of conflict and confusion so far. A lot of people seem to have difficulty figuring out they have to turn right to get left. And then the other point I have is my concern is and was and still is in crosswalks. I am really concerned about traffic coming down towards back and forth to school and to the park there. There aren't any, I haven't seen any drawn or painted or potentially painted crosswalks to assist people coming through there. And that's an issue that I think that we're still going to hear about.
You mean in the roundabouts?
I'm talking about in the entire Del Rio Strip.
Okay.
That goes through. We have that traffic now flowing. We have a lot more traffic coming down there, and we have kids going back and forth from the school and to the parks. And there's no designated crossing where the exits come from the homes up inland across to get down to where the park is. And so it's kind of catch as catch can where they decide to cross. And I would love to have a designated pedestrian flow that we can help map out so they can get through there.
Clarify for me exactly what you're talking about. Which park you're referring to and which street?
I'm talking about Truman Benedict and I'm talking about the Forester Ranch Park.
It's from the last roundabout that's being constructed up the rest of Del Rio. So basically you're going east or whatever that is, southeast.
For the homes on the north side of Del Rio.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's really, the crosswalk is to walk down to that roundabout or to that stop sign and cross there. And of course, that doesn't happen.
You got cars coming around that turn or coming down that hill. And I'm just concerned. I'm concerned. I had emails about it before we finally even put those in. So I think we need to address that somewhere along the line.
No other questions? Okay, let's hear from the public then. First speaker is Alex McKinnon, followed by Sean Thorstensen, followed by Brenda Miller.
Hello. Yeah. How you doing? Hey, Tim. Thanks for coming out. I'm Alex McKinnon. You probably got all my emails. I apologize. Maybe not quite experienced with this whole thing, so maybe didn't really know who I was supposed to address all that stuff to, but just frustration, that road coming in like it did. I mean, we always knew that it was going to go through. The noise levels have just, I know are exceeding, I think what the original studies that were done on there. I think studies were done when there was no road behind our house. And it's showing the levels, I guess, in the ballpark. But now with, the cars, and maybe the study on how many cars, I don't know what plan or what they were basing it off of. I don't know I think it's far exceeded whatever their studies were, but it sounds like we're getting the issue addressed, and I want to say thank you. Tim's been out there one day, and I think he's experienced, I think we had a car, it's probably before the radars. That thing must have been coming down the road at about 80 miles per hour. I've seen Porsches going up that street at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning when there's no radars, probably hitting 110. And you see stories in the news, every month of cars going right through people's living rooms, And I just am worried one of these mornings, early in the morning, we're going to have someone. There are trees there, but there are gaps where a car can, it literally will be flying off like a jet into the houses if it's going that kind of speed. I guess I don't really have much. It just sounds like we're getting it addressed, and I don't know if, I think Sean might want to say something. He was a little more prepared. I've been working quite a bit, so I didn't get quite prepared as Sean. And I had a lot of videos I wanted to bring and just show you guys, but I don't think I have it set up properly. Maybe I can send them to you, just examples. We have people parking right behind our house. I had one experience of a guy sitting there for 10 minutes. I went out there to confront him, which is probably not the smartest thing to do, but he would not answer me. I went back inside. I came back out, and he must have sat there for another 4 minutes. Literally, I could probably, if he reached his arm out and I put my arm out, we'd basically be able to touch each other's hands. And they're parked there. I see Tom running up and down our street. I always hey, be careful. These cars are flying up these streets, and anyone who's walking, I'm always thinking, hey, that's a dangerous spot to walk on, that side of the road. And I guess that's about all I have to say. All right, here it goes.
Time's up. Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Ward, Council. Just so you guys know, there's 5 homeowners right here from that street, so 5 of the 9. One is, his house is in escrow, so he didn't come because he's moving, but, and I'm sure definitely, Mr. Swartz, like you said, there's at least 5 contiguous houses that would be interested, some at the top of the street. I think, it's not such an issue, but to focus on the block wall, again, I just want to say that, the 4 major issues are noise, privacy, safety, and pollution. And so, in my short time living there, 5 years, I knew the road was going to go through, but driving down Sermontosa, and like you guys have mentioned, coming up Del Rio on the whole right side and Forester Ranch, every house has a 6-foot block wall. okay? And I'm not in the construction industry, but what I do know from talking to professionals in the industry is usually the builders have a condition of approval they must go through, that the city must approve for both sound, excuse me, for both sound and privacy issues. So clearly, when our houses were built in that stretch, the road ended and there was no road, no real privacy issues. It was a nature trail. So I'd like to think it's not negligence. You guys all seem like very smart, sharp people, and more of an oversight. But when the city decided to put that road through, I think, like you said, Stephen, it was just an oversight, but the noise and the privacy issues were not going to be addressed with rubberized asphalt. So again, we've had people behind our house peering in. Nobody wants to see me in my underwear, I'm sure, or my wife in her underwear, but there is a definite privacy issue. There's also a big safety concern. Again, I know the county looks at things for noise with speech interference, sleep interference, annoyance are 3 of the 5 things that they're considered. I can't talk in my backyard on a normal weekend without having to speak loudly and more so than a normal speech process. It's too loud. I certainly don't have privacy that I used to have. You know, it certainly could affect sleep in the house because we're on the 2nd story, but all those things I think were oversight and not really considered. So I think when the city built the road, they should have stepped in and demanded the same standards that they demand of developers when they build properties in the city. And so I think that was just an oversight. So again, I agree with you, Stephen, on a lot of your concerns. The crosswalks, my kids have friends across Del Rio, and I know your study, James, said 43. I can tell you it's not 43. It's probably closer to 55. We had people Sunday turning around behind our house and drag racing up to La Pata. I have yet to see one officer writing tickets. I know, again, Tim was out there. We said, hey, can we just get a cop sitting on here to deter people? Because on Veracruz, people know there's a cop there sometimes sitting in the school. You don't speed down Veracruz. Well, I've yet to see one cop on Del Rio. So anyways, thanks for your time.
Brenda Miller, followed by Jeff Haddad, followed by Don Wolf.
Could I request before you start the counter to display either the Google map or the staff report map, please? Or, yeah, that map is fine. Or a Google map would be just as good. Whatever. Yeah, Google's good.
Do you want us to go to someone else while you do that? No? Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So I share the residents' concerns. We need to think of this from a people-first perspective, protecting the sanctity of those neighborhoods. I've walked all of them over the last many 10 years for various campaigns. They're sacred neighborhoods that used to be quiet. So my concern is that if we focus on building a wall and there is a high-speed, idiotic, drunk, or texting motorist, that wall will only stop them when they reach that point. What we want to do really is to force the motorist to change their habits. And that's best done by installing a roundabout there at that access road at Camino Forestal, and then across the way, another roundabout. That will force the motorist to slow down, and then if they're still a profound idiot, they will be traveling at such a slow rate of speed, the wall may not be necessary. We have the roundabouts going in. I think the furthest south one is at Sarmentoso. We need to also remember that the wall will not address the safety of a pedestrian on that sidewalk that may be traveling at the same time, nor will it would address a bicyclist or a child in the bike lane on that roadway. The best solution is to add the roundabouts that will address the high RPMs that generate the noise. It will address the safety, and it will address the sanctity of those neighborhoods and Councilman Swart's concerns about pedestrian traffic. One problem about putting mid-block pedestrian crossings is that it entices people to cross at that point without really considering the context, and it can lead to additional collisions. The best solution really is the Federal Highway Administration's proven safety countermeasure, which is the roundabout. Yes, there's going to be some adjustment in a slight learning curve, but every community in the country that has experienced roundabouts has had the same learning curve, and they come out smiling at the end of the game. But I think really let's make a people first and neighborhood first decision, and please direct staff to strongly consider the roundabout. So, thank you.
Just so, I know,
Let's wait till then. Mr. Haddad?
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I'm actually here to address house number 10 and 11. We're on the opposite side of the street from these 9. And of course, I believe we hear the exact same noise. We could possibly hear more noise. We're not quite sure. I haven't been in these folks' backyards, but I've been on their sidewalk on their edge, and I know some of the houses are a little bit lower than the road, so we're not quite sure what's going on with the bouncing off the hills and the homes, but it's very, very loud and disruptive. And again, Steve, we agree. We bought the house new. We knew the road was coming through, and that wasn't our objection, but the speed is our objection. It's really 68 miles per hour. I would definitely agree with that. So we're really here just to ask the council to come out and consider noise abatement or mitigation of some sort from our side as well. Safety definitely is the #1 concern. I had 2 kids. They're now, one's a senior in high school, the other one's in college, but there's so many young kids in our neighborhood that do have to cross Del Rio to get to Sherman and the middle school and elementary school. And I know my son used to ride his bike across the street, and of course, right now, it is scary. It is scary for the kids that come out of driving out of our track and coming down with the speed coming down from the hill in Del Rio. So we just want somehow that to be addressed. I really agree with the last woman who spoke, because again, the wall would help a little bit with noise. It's really not going to help 100%, obviously, because we're 2-story homes. So our home in the rear, for example, we hear it incredibly wherever we are in the house. Windows closed, windows open. And again, we cannot go back in the backyard as well. We just had a Father's Day function, but the traffic is so loud. It's at this point, it's really we have to kind of change our ways, change our habits. So, but if we could get something prior to our tracks, the residential neighborhood, to slow down the people coming down that hill. They're coming down so fast. I drive a Prius, which even the Prius with no acceleration, it's exceeding the speed limit. We can't seem to get the speed limit enforced. We're not quite sure. We also talked to some of the sheriff folks about when you guys are going to be able to enforce or can write some tickets. We're not quite sure. We've had different answers. I've heard things about the construction. I don't know if Tom knows anything about that. Or when they can set up and do some speed ticketing. I'm not quite sure about that, sorry. So a couple different issues, but we just want to at least have our side as well represented. And we were not made aware of the meeting, unfortunately. My neighbor just informed me about 2 hours ago, so I'm sorry I'm a little unprepared as well, but he is flying in from Seattle, and he's representing the first house. We are in the second house, and obviously there's folks down beneath us, but I'm not quite sure. We're not familiar with all the folks. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Wolf?
Thanks for your time. I represent the last house on the cul-de-sac there, 6187. I'm fully supportive of the wall for the safety reasons. You know, safety is desperately needed there. My other concern is, it's been stated already, but the speed of the traffic coming through there, I think, is creating more noise than what was planned for. So again, if we can get some enforcement as soon as possible on that speed, it would be greatly appreciated. One part that it was mentioned, but I'd like to reinforce it, is privacy. We're at the 6187, we're at a lower elevation, so the wall isn't going to do that much for us other than from the safety standpoint. From a privacy standpoint, though, if we can get something going on at the top along by the sidewalk, I don't know if that's an HOA issue that we have to take up, or, you know, some sort of vegetation. Ideally, my preference would be that the wall follow the sidewalk, but I understand that's not consistent with the rest of the communities. But I think we can solve a couple of problems with that solution. You know, if somehow we were able to get the wall at the top by the sidewalk. So I just wanted to reiterate what the rest of the neighborhood is saying, and I'm completely on board with the wall in some fashion. Thank you.
Okay, that's the last comment. Tom, can you come back up? One of the questions I forgot to ask you is, it seemed like we were talking about the original mitigation, possible mitigation that wasn't chosen was a 4.5-foot wall, tall.
4-foot wall, yeah.
But then there was mention of that the wrought iron that people would want that on top of that wall. So was there some comment from people that the 4.5-foot wall would not be tall enough?
No, so what first of all, you're correct. So in the ER, one of the options to get the sound to within the acceptable level was selected properties were identified in that study to receive this 4-foot wall. And so what I mentioned here, though, is I gave you at council's request 2 options. One, to mimic that originally conceived concept. One, to mimic the 6-foot high maximum wall that you see in the neighborhood now. And I just wanted to point out, though, that if in fact a 4-foot wall were chosen, what you'd be doing is putting a 4-foot wall where now a 5.5-foot decorative fence is, and you probably wouldn't leave it at 4 foot. You want to at least establish something, and it's not uncommon to, on top of that shorter wall, then at least reestablish the tubular fence to give the property owner back their 5.5-foot fence, if you will. So I was just pointing out that's what you would do. You wouldn't probably just leave it 4 feet. That, people could just hop right over that. That's what I meant in the report.
Okay, so it's a security type.
Well, yeah, and just to
homeowner security.
Restore so that the property owner wouldn't lose any more than they had.
Okay, all right.
Tom, if I could, just a few points of clarification, and then I'll try and clarify the issue all around. So the wall itself would follow the existing wall line where all the tubular steel wall is along those property lines. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's how it's contemplated right now, and it would be 6 feet is contemplated.
6 feet maximum.
6 feet maximum,
which would,
okay.
Because of the grade, it may stair step like the other walls, but it couldn't exceed 6 feet.
Couldn't exceed, okay. And so I had originally thought, well, we do 4 feet, have the property owners contribute, but that may be more trouble than it's worth at this point. I think, for me, I realize and I appreciate the fact that the residents keep bringing up noise and privacy issues, but to me, I don't mean to be mean about this, but that isn't the driving issue here. It's a safety issue. It's a safety issue on that bend, on that turn, folks coming down at a high rate of speed. Even after enforcement, we'll still have the periodic one when the enforcement isn't there, come down at a high rate of speed. And I just don't think it's a great setup. And I realize originally this was a noise mitigation measure, which I think we can use as a guide for this, but to me it's a safety question primarily. Noise mitigation is a secondary and ancillary effect. So I'm going to support the 6-foot wall. And the fact that it's along the property lines contiguous may not matter as much in that case, because it's below where the sight line is there. So if you have, say, for example, the first 5 lots that embrace it, but you say you have one of them that doesn't, and the last 3 that do, I don't think that it will have that much of a visual impact because of the way that the road kind of wraps there. And so maybe you can weigh in on that too, as to contiguous versus.
Well, I'll just mention that as you start at the bottom of the graphic that's up at 6187, the first 3, maybe even into the 4th parcels, into 6181, they start well below the street grade.
That's
And so
right.
even a 6-foot wall will be below the level of the sidewalk, somewhere around 6181 as you start reaching parity. And then you actually have a very slight, or maybe at level all the way down to 6171, which is slightly above the sidewalk. So
you
the
need
road
that
is falling,
contiguous-
and the lots are falling at a lesser rate.
I see, okay.
So they will match up.
I think the contiguous principle would probably start at, say, 6179 and go to the end of 6171. I guess is not as critical for the ones that are subgrade, but I still think it's a safety issue, and I think that I have that option. But I appreciate the residents across the street saying, I got sound, I got these things. That's not what this is about for me. This is a safety question, first and foremost, and then sound is a secondary driver. So I think if we have other residents saying, why this? Well, we just need to understand that this was, because of the bend of the road, this is a pretty unique piece of property in our town, especially with one with a new road going through it, that I think this is a particular exception that we could find a carve out for this budget to build the wall. So.
Can I give an idea here? First of all, the project's not done, and so the speaker who mentioned that no tickets have been given, that's true, because I think the road has to be normalized and set to traffic studies, and then the signs have to be put up. Is that correct? Before
There is,
citations?
I don't know if Sergeant Hartman wants to address the construction speed. I'm going to make sure I get it right.
Well, the point is we can't give tickets until the project's finished.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
You're right.
okay. So our hands have been tied seriously during the construction project. So the thought I might have is on concurrent paths, get our ducks in a row with the HOA and the 9 units and find out who wants to play, who doesn't, what the HOA's involvement is, do a little bit of homework. But defer the decision until the project's done, the study is done, and we can start citing people. And then the third path would be get some black and whites out there, because whoever mentioned the Vera Cruz story, that is so true. Everybody knows there might be a cop, and everybody hits the brakes down to 25 going downhill. And so basically 3 plans of attack. And so we wouldn't actually be deciding on the wall until we got better information from who owns what and who wants to be participate or not. But then separately, let's deal with the enforcement issue as soon as we can and get a police presence
A
out
couple
there.
questions of staff before we continue on this discussion route. So the first one, Tom, is can you talk to me a little bit about what the traffic models were before Del Rio opened and what the projections were after completion?
I don't
rough numbers.
I
I'm
don't
not
have
putting
the
those volumes
volumes
exact.
offhand, but in the EIR there was traffic modeling done, and I think we were maybe at a couple thousand cars a day tops on the existing portion of Del Rio. And in 20 years, at the projection that the EIR used, it would be the 8 to 9 to possibly 10,000 cars a day.
But correct me if I'm wrong, my recollection of the scenario was that it was going to almost double the day Del Rio opened, essentially, is what our traffic modeling
There
looked
was an
like, correct?
initial projection as well, and it might have been about a doubling or so.
Yeah, so we were projecting there was going to be a doubling of the traffic flow in the street the day it opened.
Right.
Okay. My next issue was just exactly because echo Lori's sentiments about enforcement. I think that's a great idea. So before you go into discussion, those are my questions.
And I want to add to this that Del Rio is designed to be a connector through to La Plata, which is a connector through everywhere. So it's a arterial road. The concept to throw in more turnabouts roundabouts in an arterial road just frosts me.
How do you really feel?
Start peppering them throughout the city and try it yourselves before you start putting them all on one street. So I think enforcement, once we can establish a speed limit there so that we can then ticket for, there's a lot more things to get to before we're thinking about putting on one of those damn roundabouts anymore.
The wall.
And as far as the wall goes, I would be okay to go ahead and authorize the 6-foot wall and just make sure that the ducks get put in the row, before we go ahead and do it, but just to let them go ahead and say, yeah, we're going to authorize it, make sure that this needs to be done, but I'd be okay on that.
First off, I'd just like to ask Steve to punish me by putting a roundabout in front of my house. I would really,
Yeah.
really appreciate you punishing me
And
that
I would
way.
second that, too.
Yeah,
I'll
so if
take
you
a
could do that,
roundabout.
the five-way stop, that'd be fantastic. Please hurt me. I'm going to support this request, but before I do that, I just have to say a couple words. Each and every one of you bought these properties with a disclosure knowing that this was going to be an arterial route through town to La Pata connector. While I appreciate the humor of the Father's Day race day, it was a little over the top for me.
I appreciate it.
It was borderline ridiculous, but I get it. I read emails like that all the time. When your level of frustration just gets so high, you can't control yourself. So with that said, the reason I'm going to support this and we move forward with it is because it was part of the initial mitigation factors that we did not anticipate. I'm going to support moving forward with it now because it was a mitigation factor that should have been taken care of initially, but I'm doing it only because it was one of the initial mitigation factors. So this is not something that I'm going to look at doing all over the community in areas where people rise up and say, I want a wall in my backyard. I wholly expect that you would build a wall in your backyard if you want a backyard, or a wall in your backyard. That being said, I think San Clemente is about the people, and we need to do what's right for the communities, and this was something that was presented earlier, and so we need to follow through with it. I think a simple majority for me in this case, just like we do every other vote in town, would be sufficient. I don't think we need to get sign up from all 9 and do this guy has one, this guy doesn't, this guy has, and this guy doesn't. So I'm comfortable with it. I heard from 5 people here this evening. There's 9 locations. I'm comfortable moving forward with the entire lot of it. Moving forward, I think there's an opportunity to hopefully to do a road diet, Tom, where that median that currently exists to help encourage people to slow down. And I'm with Steve. I don't think we need another damn roundabout on their street. I'd like one on my street. But I think there's an opportunity there to create some traffic flow slowing down, however you want to put that. I'm tired. So anyway, with that said, that long story was just to say I support it. I think it's a great idea. I think we need to move on it now. And I'm good with the simple majority to do the whole length.
And so it may be 2 steps, right? It's, we approve you to go to the next step, but we're not approving the release of the money tonight because we don't know how much it is. And one of the things, being a homeowner myself, the idea of a wall and then somebody has a different treatment, the edges, there's a lot of questions the homeowners might have if their next door neighbor doesn't want to participate. So it would come back to us for final approval once you get a real price.
I think there's a not to exceed number here, you know, that is.
180,000.
Yeah, 180,000, which I think we can approve as a council. I'd hate to leave it undone or undetermined or anything unsaid here. But I think if we can approve the not to exceed number, and then just have staff gauge resident participation, as long as it doesn't exceed that number, then we've got some direction. It'll come back obviously with design, but.
Well, and we're talking about putting in the whole wall. We're not talking about putting in pieces of a wall.
Well, I think that's what you're deliberating, but I'll just say that if I was a homeowner there and you approached me and offered to build I'm confident that we'll get all 9 if we approach them and coordinate, say, here's what we'll do. So that's probably not an issue, but that's what you're talking about.
I'm going to oppose you guys if you think you're going to get all 9. There's going to be one neighbor who hates one of these people out here, and they're going to oppose it. So I'm going to stick with my simple majority idea and say that we move forward with that route, because trying to get unanimous decision from anybody on anything,
anyone who wants
it's impossible.
Can build it. I mean, that's really.
Do you have a question?
Well, the other part was, I would love to see, when we're talking about crosswalk or whatever, but possibly, kids cross lights, the flashing light, whatever, which would I would think, when you've got stuff like that about crossing and kids crossing and that kind of stuff, tends to slow down most people that would tend to slow down anyway, other than ones that would probably take a ramp and jump over everything, so.
I would like to ask a question. We've heard from this other side of the street that, privacy and noise is a huge issue, and we heard that from the initial side of the street. Is there ability to build a wall on the other side that would prevent those homeowners from seeing the cars?
So what was mentioned was, if you look at the map, Camino Ventosa, as that cul-de-sac that hooks down the 2 pie-shaped properties, that's where the gentleman was talking about. They also have, and there might be a couple other select properties on that side that have the see-through tubular fence. So the answer to your question is, and it would be.
So they would be the only ones that have that type of fence?
I know these 2 have the tubular fence. There might be a few or more down here. I haven't done an inventory because my direction was to focus on the Camino Forestal side.
Right.
You put a block wall there, it will be a screening wall.
It will be, because nothing's going to block out the noise. And I can tell him that, because I live by the 5 freeway and no wall blocks it out. But it does block out it bugging you that you can see it and that it's privacy, that they can look in your house. My point being, if we made the property owners have to pay half of this, we could take care of the other owners on the other side.
Although I
I'm
appreciate
serious on that.
philosophically where you're at on that, this is a safety and a mitigation measure. I'm not interested in screening and noise. I'm not.
I'm not positive that it is a safety issue yet.
Okay, well, then vote
Because
accordingly. I'm just saying, if we're going to get in the business of noise and screening, then we're going to have a lot of business to
I
be
think
in for
that's
the
what we're
rest of
getting
this
into.
town.
I actually think that's what we're
Well,
getting
then,
into.
I don't think we are. For the reason I brought up is I believe it's a safety issue, and that's what my vote is going to be really focused on. Like I said, I think safety is paramount. The way that the road curves, the way that is, it just looked desperately unsafe. And why it is that we didn't mitigate that way in the first place is beyond me, but I missed it, and I'm willing to remediate what I believe the core issue is there.
Let me reiterate my position on this, Kathy, it might help you a little bit, is that the only reason I'm even considering this tonight is because it's part of the initial mitigation factors that we included
But
in the
only
report.
selected, and we don't even know which ones those are.
Well, but my point is, it wasn't included on both sides of the street. It was included on this side of the street for safety reasons. And so that's the only reason I'm
Actually, I think
entertaining
the
this
study was
discussion.
noise, wasn't it?
It
This
wa- it
block
was-
wall was for noise?
It was noise, but it was a mitigation factor on this side of the street only. And it wasn't
For
included.
noise.
But it was included on,
It actually was selected properties on both sides, and I couldn't
It
tell you on the
was.
other side.
Right. So
conditioning.
my point is, I don't think
Really?
I'm ready tonight. I think
That's
I
great.
need more info. I understand why they want a wall. I totally get it.
Mhm.
But I think we need to look at this a little better, and I need to hear from the HOA, because I think the HOA has a part in this also. But I think the major issue is sound, and we do need to slow down the traffic, because that is a lot of the noise, the velocity of the tires, but we've put rubberized pavement down. You know, the wall is not going to block out the sound of an engine, someone going by. It's just not going to do that. But my point is, I think we are getting into that, and I think there's an opportunity to do more with the same amount of money and look into what we really need to, if there is something that needs to be done. I'm not going to be ready to vote on it yet, just based on the fact they would like the wall. And I do appreciate you bringing it back, because I drove down that street the very first email I got, and I was like, oh my God, this is so close. And for me, it's privacy and how close the cars are, you know, and I don't know if it's safety, but I think I need to hear more, and I think the HOA has to be involved, and I'm not sure the city should be footing the whole bill.
I completely appreciate everything pointed out, Mayor, and you make very relevant points on these items, but I don't want to overcomplicate this. It's a safety question. The bend of the road lends itself towards a hazardous condition for the residents there, and I think that we ought to have a block wall so that we can mitigate that risk. And if there's an ancillary sound question there and other items, then that's great. But that's really the focus of it. I don't want to walk down the road about noise and screening mitigation for the rest of the community, or any community in our town, like any of the residents in our town, to provide noise and screening issues. That means any project we ever do, any road we ever upgrade, anything we ever do, we're going to be responsible for noise? No, that's not going to be something I want to break into on this one. So I'm focused completely on the safety question here. The way that road bends exposed these homes to that risk, and I think it's an unacceptable status quo. I think we should budget the money, get it corrected, and say, and then. But I do agree, focusing on the velocity of the traffic. No roundabout there, but I think there's ways to, or road diet and other ways to approach that, so that all the residents could benefit from that long term.
And what it is I'm going to vote in favor of authorizing the wall at 6 feet. And I don't want to start going into the mitigation on the sound, because then we could end up looking at the entire street all the way to Los Mares. I mean, where are we going to stop? Where I think if they want, we put in the rubberized asphalt, and I think that possibly HOAs can step up to also help knock it down with vegetation and other things that can absorb some of the sound. And I do believe that if we can reduce speeds by other controls and measures, that'll also help. But I don't want to start down that road as far as a sound issue. I agree that it's a safety issue, and I'll be supporting the 8-foot wall, 6-foot wall.
Before you make a motion, I just got to make one more comment. Folks, I've got to thank you for coming out this evening and voicing your concerns. And I just want to say that, although we all may appear to be geniuses up here and know everything, we don't. And that's why I encourage everybody to take a minute out of your week and look at our agenda and see what's going on so that we can address these issues before they arise. Something similar came up with Talega with the Lapata extension. We had a resident reach out to us before they even started construction, talking about the noise that was going to come by his neighborhood, the safety issues and concerns, all the same issues you guys are discussing, and we were able to make mitigation factors and changes before we completed the roadway. And so it's imperative that everybody in this community stand up, take a look at what's going on, see what's not only going to affect you, but what's going to affect your neighbor, and come out and speak about those items before we get to this point. So we don't have the emails from Alex that we had moving forward.
That's a good point. It was actually brought up before the road was started that the sound study, the decibel ratings was done prior to any traffic ever remotely coming up there with speed. It was brought up by all of us.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was discounted.
you need to keep pushing those issues and pushing those issues just like you did. So with that, I'm going to let Tim make a motion.
I move that we provide staff the direction to proceed with the construction of the block wall at a cost not to exceed $180,000 for the 9 homes along that area for the homeowners that elect to proceed with the construction of that wall. I would also like to move that we direct staff concurrently to explore other options to reduce speed along there, including either potentially road diet as well as increased enforcement and other items that might help to help lower the velocity on that road and create probably a more comfortable and safer environment overall. But ultimately, anyway, that's my motion.
Could I add one other thing, which is on a going forward basis for the next 2 months, that from the lieutenant, we get at the council level the number of hours he's putting a black and white out there. We don't need to know which hours, but just that he has thought about it and had said it's this many, and to get us through the summer and into the back-to-school season.
Included.
Included in the motion?
That's included in the motion.
Can I also ask that we direct them to include with those measures regarding speed is to create crosswalk, safety crosswalk issues there.
I think
we can provide staff direction outside of this one on the crosswalk. Let's do that maybe during council member items just to keep this focused on this question. So including council member Donchek's items as well as my original motion. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Brown, second by Swartz. All in favor? Aye. It will pass 4-1, and I will be opposed only because I think we could have come up with a better solution with more time. And your card, the comment was closed, so you can come up during our communications if you want to put your name on this and speak after this. Right, it's next, but it was closed on this item.
Okay, oral communications, part 2. I do have a card.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the one card I have is Mr., and I'm not going to say this right, Stephen Wontrowski? I want to add an extra syllable to your name, I think.
No, right on the money. They are very, very good. It's all right to talk?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Stephen Wontrowski, Mission Viejo, and I just came back from San Juan Capistrano City Council meeting, and I had to apologize down there also for Mission Viejo meddling in the affairs of San Juan as well as San Clemente with that toll road extension. And it's amazing, when I used to be in the city council meetings of Mission Viejo, they used to complain about Sacramento meddling in Mission Viejo local affairs, and they just do it anyway on their own for other cities. And what I'm here to do is just to bring you a little update on a couple of items that I spoke out at the OCFA Executive Committee meeting, which your council member attended. And it's on transparency. There's such a lack of transparency at the OCFA. And I've been trying for about, I don't know, a couple of years down there to get some transparency, meaningful transparency. And then last 2 Januaries ago, the chief actually said that was one of his goals, and things have gotten worse since he said that was one of his goals. But here are a couple of items that I asked for some transparency on. The outside legal opinion regarding your liability for the OCFA, UAL at OSERS, pension liability, that's probably in-house now at the OCFA. And the question I had was, are we going to allow the city council members to see that and the residents? And before they had ruled that it was going to be a confidential report, there was no response from the OCFA on that, whether you'll even be able to see that. The next thing is that with regard to cost-saving recommendations, that various cities are really in a tight jam, okay? Like San Juan Capistrano, Westminster, they're financially strapped. And it was brought up, well, there are cost-saving measures that you can adopt. And so I've asked time and time again, please tell these cities, including San Clemente, what potential cost-saving ideas are out there that the city council could evaluate and decide to implement if they wanted to, without reducing public safety, all right? The next thing was that the Mendoza bill, SB 302, this was portrayed as an innocuous type of bill, and 3 times I've asked down there the simple question, will the equitable adjustment repayments back to like cities like that have been overcharged, Irvine, Dana Point, Laguna Niguel, Aliso Viejo, will SB 302 stop that reimbursement? The way I read it, yes. And so I said, tell us one way or the other. Will it or will not? And then the actual last thing is that Voice of OC came up with an article stating that the OCFA has been in contact with City of Anaheim to merge. Thank you.
Could we, you have an OCFA meeting coming up when?
I do, end of July.
Could we, for our
End of
August
July.
meeting, have you under council member items just report out what's
Sure.
going on? That would be really good. All right. On
And-
all matters OCFA, in addition to some of these.
Right, especially if, have we ever asked the question? Have we ever asked the question of cost savings?
Well, I think we're always asking the question of cost savings. I can report out on that item in our next meeting.
Okay, thank you very
Let
much.
me, if you guys want, I could save us all some time. I can address the comments, some of the issues if you guys want.
You want to address it on behalf of OCFA?
No.
I don't think you do.
No, public information.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, or doesn't want to hear it, I'm good.
We'll have
Why
Tim.
don't I have a conversation? We can report on it in council member items at next meeting.
Okay, I have one more card. Matt Clausen.
Hi. Really sorry to have missed the public comment period. I happened to have just gotten an email yesterday on this meeting, and I happened to be in Seattle, so I didn't quite make it from the airport to here tonight to catch the comments. And I appreciate the ruling on building the wall. It's a great idea. The folks down there below definitely need it because it is a safety issue, no doubt about it. And, you know, a car could end up in their backyard or in their kitchen very easily. I am here to represent those few houses that do reside on the other side. My house is the first house coming down the hill. I suppose I could, you know, make a case that it's a safety issue as well, because cars are going just as fast coming around that turn, and there is, you know, the element of that. But honestly, that's not why I'm here. When we moved into that house knowing that that road was going to go through, we didn't realize it was going to be as loud as the freeway. nor did anyone who did that environmental impact report. I've read it very carefully. I read the sound mitigation discussion. They said it was well within, the normal limits, the way they studied it, but I don't know if they studied that road that was going to go in there, because the sound is regularly between 70 and 90 decibels. At 65 is normally when you can make a noise complaint in a neighborhood. I realize that you all are protected, the city is protected for street noise, but sometimes things are just the right thing to do. And I also understand the whole can of worms issue about, noise and all the way down Del Rio. Well, all the way down Del Rio, when they built those homes, the homes that were on Del Rio, of course, the developer put in walls for sound and for privacy, because that's what you do when you're on a 4-lane busy road, is you put in a wall, right? Everywhere all around town. You wouldn't let someone put in a development on a road like that unless you had a wall there. So the fact is that what was built, whatever the reasons were for it, we all knew it was going in, but sometimes when something is done, it's not the way it was planned. And I cannot believe that sound levels of that magnitude were what was planned. And if you sit in those backyards, you'll understand it is a huge quality of life issue, which in our cases means a huge property value issue and quality of life that shouldn't necessarily be. And I think a simple solution, and there's only a few houses that are on that road that have the old steel tube fencing. It's not a lot of them. And where they did the sound, I'm out of time. Where they did the sound studies were at one corner of Vistazo and Del Rio for several houses there, and they initially had suggested either a wall or rubberized asphalt. Rubberized asphalt was what was chosen, I'm assuming because it was the least expensive. But if nothing else, I would ask that the city commission someone so that, it's not just some guy wanting to have silence in his backyard. Come back and do a study. It's a pretty simple task. Come back and put a sound meter back there and see just how loud it is, and then go look at the city codes about when you can make a complaint about a neighbor's noise. And when you know that noise level is being exceeded every minute of every day in that space, you might think that maybe it's the right thing to do.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
All right.
No motion to reconsider that vote? Okay.
Next item is determination of rules of engagement for the Toll Road Subcommittee.
I think you had asked that maybe this come up.
Yeah.
But
Well, so here's how we're operating, and then maybe we can get some feedback from our colleagues. We've had 2 meetings with staff at a deeper level than we might at a full board meeting. And the basic idea is to get material ready for you all to consider at a council meeting. So basically moving things along so that August, when we reconvene, we'll have different projects moving forward and encouraging staff and providing a sounding board for them. So the kinds of things we did with James and Eric was the different vendors for the different things we approved tonight. We asked a lot of questions, did a lot of discussion about those kinds of things, and encourage staff reports to be prepared in a timely manner. With the approval of one of the vendors today, it is likely that Mayor Ward and I will drive the community with the different vendors and show them where the different alignments might go and give them a grounding on the community. And in addition, they could meet with all 5 of us, but the basic idea would be, at minimum, we'd be there as a reference point for them. So the spirit of it is getting materials ready for the 5 of us to look at and just being involved at a deeper, more granular level.
And we've been using, so far we've had staff, we've had James and Eric and Scott. I believe, have we had any other staff? But, and do we agree we were meeting every other week, every couple
Yeah,
weeks?
we've been, 2 times a month.
Define vendors.
The Englander consulting firm that we approved tonight, the IBI traffic engineers that we approved tonight, those would be examples of vendors. We've also reached out. For me, this has been a superhuman effort, but we're trying to build stakeholder relationships across South Orange County, and so we've been meeting with other electeds, we've been meeting with Rancho Mission Viejo, basically different groups to, educate.
And just trying to coordinate the effort. And basically, it wasn't that we chose the vendor, it's like who was available. Really, that's who came up. It wasn't a decision by us. We looked over the vendors, and then we asked for RFPs, or not RFP, but, a proposal. So we aren't choosing how to, we would bring those to you. 3 would have come if we would have had 3. So, but we're not going to make any decision.
No.
It sounds like great progress.
We're just, we're kind of focusing, guiding, and making sure that we're hitting the marks in a timely manner.
But we would make sure we had the full authorization of the board, to move forward on something.
Well, I think maybe I could speak for the rest of us, but, we understand that sometimes that we need to take emergency action, that those are things are necessary. I don't think there's anybody on this council who would be happy to meet for an emergency meeting to discuss toll road questions at any point that you feel is germane. So, this is the one item where I think we can all passionately state that we are 100% committed. And so, we're at your disposal for those questions.
And just a couple of items of progress, because it occurred. Okay, at OCTA, we had a project to extend the HOV lanes on the I-5 down to the San Diego line. As the chair of the Regional Highways and Highways Committee, I asked for that report to be updated and presented at a September RHP committee meeting, and with milestones and also what the alternatives are that they're looking at. And it's building off of Councilmember Ham's questions whenever it was, at a prior meeting about what's really going on down there. So that we'll have an actual report in September that we as a community can look at, but it's coming through OCTA. And then the other thing, with my OCTA hat on, the CEO and I are going to go meet with SCAG in September and educate SCAG on what's going on in South County, because they will be the ultimate arbitrators of any alignment that goes forward in the long-range plan.
So the OCTA is going to come down and present the extension of the HOV lane in September to us?
It'll be a staff report, and then I would just pass it on to you, and then if you wanted OCTA to come, they could.
Actually, I made a request for OCTA to do a
presentation.
to do a presentation, because I think, I don't think it was Daryl Johnson, but
It's probably Dave Simpson.
offered it on OCTA projects, but it might have had to do with Measure M. But I asked for them to come and talk about anything.
Yeah, you're invited to this District 5 Mayor's Breakfast that Lori Davies.
And I'm attending.
Yeah, and so at that point, you're going to get a nifty little brochure about our city, but that would be the time to ask Dave if you wanted that.
So Laura, I guess my only ask then when we get the report is there be an emphasis on the necessity to widen the freeway for any additional HOV lanes. I read the long-term report that when you were the chair of the OCTA, and it showed that all of OCTA's numbers didn't show a necessity for those lanes. The only reason they were even contemplating it was because of what San Diego was doing.
Exactly.
And so I would just echo those concerns, is that if there is no need, let's not do it.
Well, and in this report that we will be contemplating at OCTA, the alternatives, because when Bob Baker was mayor and I originally asked for that, it was just take the HOV lanes, why stop at Pico? If there's money available from Measure M, take it to the finish line.
Yeah.
But since then, the world has kind of changed, and it seems like there's 3 alternatives. There's the Caltrans alternative that Mark McGuire spoke of tonight. There's the TCA alternative, which Mark also spoke of tonight. And then there's the, let's just do the HOV. And so that's a whole different take on the request. And then traffic counts as part of the ask.
The other issue too is that there was 2 projects that were included in the long-term plan. When you guys wrote that report, the first one was the HOV extension all the way to the county line. The second one was the realignment of the El Camino rail overpass. And just judging off the weak drawings that we got from the TCA, the realignment of the overpass has significant impacts to the residents on both sides of the freeway. And so if the traffic studies don't show a necessity for that, I don't know why that'd even be included in the report. And so if we just have an emphasis on those 2 issues, why they were included, if their own studies show there is no need for it, and what benefit do we have as a community to move forward with these? So
I think as a city, we can't just rely on OCTA to take this message to SCAG. And I think we should have a letter as a city to OCTA of what we're concerned about, all of us. I mean, I understand, you know, Lori's our rep, but what we've heard tonight and what we've all been kind of looking at is those hot lanes going through San Clemente, that cannot happen. And I appreciate that OCTA is, you know, that Lori's going to go talk to SCAG because, you know, they're multi-lanes coming up here. It just cannot happen, especially if the traffic counts don't warrant it. But I think maybe we should be writing a letter to OCTA as a city that we're concerned with that, and then also reaching out to SCAG, shouldn't we? As a city,
The question is when we would do those things. And so at this point, we want to get our arterial alternative to be absolutely perfect, figure out who should weigh in on that, and then launch that out as the education program, that this is the solution.
So it's not this, but this.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the level of water
Okay.
connection to be discussed and that kind of, all that part of it.
Just, we need to be thinking about that because guaranteed TCA is in touch and talking to SCAG and saying how this has to happen, you know. So I agree, we do need that arterial study, but we do need to think about that. The other thing I want to ask is the council, while we're on the subject, is it was brought up by the public that in August 10th for TCA, they're going to be talking about these civil rights issues at the public forum where people, their items were taken and they were searched and things like that. Do we, as a city, want to write a letter of concern of what our residents went through at that public forum?
You were there.
I was there. But I want approval from the council to write a letter like that.
Honestly, I would support and put my name on a letter of the experiences that you yourself experienced, because talking to you and your husband, it was pretty significant, so.
Right.
And I concur. I would address it, we first person, we shouldn't be trying to address what we've received from comments as much as we can provide your first person experience down there.
There are residents telling us what happened to them.
Well, I think to Steve's point is what he's trying to get across is if we focus on your experience and say, not only did this happen to our mayor, but we have multiple accounts of other issues just like this happening
Okay.
across the board.
Okay.
And my only thought on that is what's your ask? Because you were treated inappropriately and rudely, but the point is we're looking for a process that truly is held to the highest possible standard.
Transparency would be a good word to
Right.
use.
But we don't believe that public forum reflected that, so, okay.
Before we move off this item, Laura, you mentioned that you took city, or maybe Kathy, you mentioned you took city staff. Is there other members of commissions or committees that are on this subcommittee with you? No?
Oh, we haven't done that yet. We are going to do the tour, but I'm really glad you brought that up. We probably should request a study session for the Planning Commission on the toll road and figure out a way to engage them, because they're our transportation commission.
When do we get the reports back?
That would be the, I don't know.
I mean, it'd be nice to have some material to actually study.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
and not that this-
So the traffic study should go through the Planning Commission on its way to us. The arterial, that's the one that does the arterial solution.
I think it would be interesting, not only from education point of view, but also just from their feedback.
Yes.
On some of the lessons learned, that it would be interesting to hear. I mean, it might delay it making back to us, but the feedback, the minutes, the video itself, I'd be interested in attending that meeting and seeing what they're chatting about, so.
Great. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, number 2, report number 2, Mr. Swartz.
Did we get my slides? Slide, no, just one, I think. Yeah. Just, as I alluded to earlier, the success of the trolley that was started way before I got on the council is fantastic. And it has, we are actually performing better than than San Juan, Dana Point, Laguna Beach, and up the coast. So, but they connect to each other. We obviously can't do that now because it would take another trolley car. And what I thought of and what I've brought up before was to allow vendors and companies and inside or along the route and in the city to promote their business by placing some advertising cards inside the trolleys. And where I asked Starfish Signs and Graphics to go and measure it out for me and to come up back to what it could look like. My recommendation is that we create a format that would be consistent, where they would all follow the design, and maybe run through the design committee that was involved with the trolley itself, and have all the signs be similar in design and layout and size and color scheme, so that we're not tearing away too much from it, but we're giving the promotion for the businesses that are around the area that are looking for the trolley to bring them business. And then we charge for that, and we can come up with the revenue stream potentially that could then go into a fund to fund for our next trolley, to go towards the cost of a next trolley, and even continue on to fund part of the maintenance of the trolleys. So this is an early concept of it. I would just like to get the consensus to go ahead and at least follow through with some ideas, maybe bring back the trolley design committee to then throw that together, and then flesh it out as far as pricing and what's competitive pricing in the area, and to go forward and come back with a potential budget as to what we'd be able to generate in revenue as far as having this promotion allowable on the trolleys. So.
I'm very excited to hear Lori's perspective on this, as I've brought previous advertising opportunities to the community, and she's been staunchly opposed, so I want to see if her position still stands.
I think at this point, I don't think we should have any ideas off the table, right, when it comes to the trolleys. It's all very new. It's proven to be enormously successful. However, it's not starved for capital at this point. I would like to see the completion of an entire season. I'd like to see, I guess we're wrapping up in another month or two, and to have this be part of maybe a larger look at the wins, the losses, the path forward for the trolleys. One of the things that I was chatting with James about the other day was we've got 2 cities that are giving up, quote unquote, their trolley systems, including their cars in our county, and perhaps we could take a look at those at the end of the season and grabbing those for an intercity trolley, right? It was Westminster? La Habra. That was at Westminster and La Habra. So, but yeah, but I think what my point is I'd like to take this in consideration with a whole series of other items at the same time, because I think there's, we've got external, advertising, other questions that we've contemplated and not done. And so I'd like to take it more in a larger thing. It's not that the idea may not have merit, it's just that I think the timing wise, I'd like to maybe pick it up in September, October when the trolleys are done running, and then we can get feedback and start to really see what we want to do for the next season. So I won't say yes or no at this point. I'd just like to give it more time.
I don't have a big objection to that. Again, I want to start the process, and so that's why we went to this degree, to show basically what it would look like, how it would fit in the panels, and if we want to wait till the season to see where we end up with, that's fine, as long as we keep it on the table and move forward, try to move forward on it.
I agree with that, to take it into holistic, look at everything with the trolley, but I would like to actually move it back further than September, October, more after that, and to where we start talking about the trolley again. I think September, October is going to be too soon for a conversation on the trolley for next year.
I think the only thing that I would like to take advantage of is perhaps feedback from the riders. If we, spring of next year, they'll probably be out of sight, out of mind. It'll be a little fresher, perhaps in October than it would be in.
Not only that, but if you're going to do this, you want to gear up and give time, adequate time, to come up with the pricing and marketing for the advertising, so that it's in play and ready to go when it would start Memorial Day. So if you waited till April, that basically kills it.
Not April, just after the beginning of the year, and I would like to say that I would like to not consider any signage or new signage until after we're done with the outlet mall signage. That's my opinion.
I don't know, okay. I don't know how advertising signs inside our trolley has anything to do with display signs.
For me, I would like to wait on that. But I appreciate Starfish doing this, and maybe in September, October, we look at what the volume is and look at the trolleys, and then we should be looking at the routes, and then we'll have to decide on signage and how much signage, and I also think there might need to be limits on how many one entity can advertise in one trolley, things like that.
I was going to suggest we can come up with with limits as to how many we'll allow in any one trolley, and we can also come up with how many can any one entity get. All that I agree with but I'm looking to work towards coming with parameters, and I agree that we should wait till we get our final reports in September, and then take a look at the whole program.
Yeah, I like the idea of looking at the whole program, because the other thing I'm hearing, I think sent you an email today, people are asking, are you going to run the trolley for Glitz? Can we have the trolley car for the homecoming parade? Can we have a trolley car just to park down by North Street and use it to distribute Historical Society materials? Can we auction off the trolley for an evening as an auction item at one of our fundraisers? So there's a revenue generating off-season aspect of this that we might want to think about, rather than just having the cars sit wherever they're going to sit, between Labor Day and Memorial Day. And so what I like about your idea, Steve, is this idea of there's a revenue piece that, we can explore, but there's a lot of ways to maybe optimize the experience. But a trolley car in the homecoming parade, is that not a cool idea?
Well, how about this? How about we're only using our trolley cars Thursday through Sunday. You could also throw out and create a concept where private companies, organizations can rent it for the other days.
So building off of Tim's idea, I'd really like, I don't know where it lives in your staff world, if it's the two of you on the trolley subcommittee and a design review subcommittee person or whatever, but basically, how do we optimize it from all levels, including your idea that you're sharing tonight? Yeah.
Did you get something out of that?
I got a lot out.
Okay. A lot of different directions.
Okay. City manager, city attorney,
Nothing more tonight.
council members.
You know, I was down at Ocean Fest this weekend, and it really does our city proud. I was so impressed with the athletes, and the vibe was just terrific this year, and I thought there was just the right amount of public safety presence and great weather.
And the tribute band was excellent to Stevie Ray Vaughan. A blast from the past, better than he
Chris, do you have anything?
Yeah. Yeah, so the first item is, I guess, a new item. So I was driving by the freeway the other day between Vaquero and Avenue Vista Hermosa. On both sides of the freeway, I noticed that the new plantings just went in. And I reached out to staff to find out what type of plant base we're using. And to my surprise, it was eucalyptus and pine trees.
No.
I was informed by a staff member that we knew this and we had no opposition to it. I seem to recall when they took out a whole slew of eucalyptus, we said, great, let's make sure we don't use those again in future
And they're not
projects
in
along
our
the freeway.
plant palette.
They're not a plant palette. So what I'm hoping for this evening is consensus, direction, whatever we need to do through the city attorney to ensure that eucalyptus and pines are not included, and whatever it costs, we remove those and replace them with appropriate vegetation that's more suited to our community.
I mean, there's a similar tree called a Melaleuca that's extremely more stable and easier to control.
Do I need to agendize this for future discussion?
If the prior direction stands, then it's just reminding staff of that. If it takes a change in a contract or a new contract, it'd have to come back.
I want to say I thought we clarified
I'm
this.
pretty sure we did.
I
Staff
think
told me
we
we didn't. It was,
I think the direction is clear. We want to provide clear direction, right?
okay.
Yeah.
Direction clear, James, that this needs to be addressed? Okay, perfect. So that was number one. My second issue to bring up, sorry, I'm tired, is I just want to comment on the recent brush fires we had behind San Clemente. I want to thank all the guys and gals that went out there to fight those brush fires. I think they did a fantastic job. I want to thank the community for reaching out and supporting. I was on duty for 72 hours during one, if not both, those fires, and they came out and supported us amazingly. Everyone worked together. They supported the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Authority. Everything went seamlessly. With that, I want to remind all the people who don't live in a planned neighborhood, who live adjacent to wildland areas in our community, that there's an opportunity to go on ocfa.org to find out about defensible space. And it's your responsibility as a property owner to ensure that you have an appropriate amount of defensible space between your home and the wildland. And a good idea of what defensible space looks like, or what type of factors go into it. If you drive along the Pico corridor and you look north towards Forster Highlands or Marblehead, you can see there's very clear delineation of what looks like natural vegetation and grass that's all now dead and yellow, ready to burn. And then as you get up closer to the homes, you see a lot of green, thick shrubbery that's all being irrigated and controlled, that's low flammability. And so those are the type of things that you can find on OCFA's website, and hopefully you'll take it upon yourself to reach out and make those necessary changes to ensure that your properties are protected against future brush fires. That being said, I do want to say that I wholeheartedly support the mission statement of Camp Pendleton and everything they do down there. The men and women of Camp Pendleton keep us safe each and every day, and I don't think it's fair of this community to ask them to sacrifice their training in support for some small smoke inhalation we might have to deal with every season. And ensure everyone that Camp Pendleton takes fire very seriously, and they provide fire breaks between us and them to ensure that those fires do exactly as they did, which is they bump those fire breaks and they go out. So thank you to them for their service as well.
Thank you, Chris, for your service. All right. So I have a presentation I want to make to the council here. It's a little bit of a follow-up. I have titled this presentation, What Up Council? And it's a contemplation on Mr. Paul Walker and our current shark conundrum. So we go to the next slide there, Laura. So we had the pleasure of having Mr. Chad Kroger and Bodie Johnson come to our March 17th meeting where they did a presentation asking that the council build a 10-foot tall statue of Paul Walker at the end of the pier. And that request was summarily denied by a very astute member of this council, which is myself. And I thought I was being very smart. However, I realized afterwards that we have a deeper connection with Paul Walker in San Clemente. His cousin went to school at San Clemente High School. Apparently he's been very cool to locals.
He's been very cool to locals, I'll give you that.
All right, okay. Came down to San Clemente every once in a while. He was also termed by Mr. Bodie and Chad as a beacon of headlights to guide us down the dusty road, an antidote to all things melancholy. I spelled that as best I could with the pronunciation. He saved Vince, even though he was flexing on him during the Fast and Furious. I don't quite know what that means, but I put it in there because it sounded cool. He also mentioned that Detroit has a RoboCop, Philly has a Rocky, and San Clemente has ... But he was a talented actor, all-around good guy. And as Mr. Bodie Johnson said at the end of his presentation, when you put goodwill out there, what can be accomplished by Paul Walker? Profound words indeed. But what happened after the request was denied? The Sharks came. The Sharks showed up. I'd like to show you this chart because it's very relevant. If you look at our shark advisories and closures, in January and February we had 0 reported shark advisories and closures. In March we had 1, in April we had 3, and then in the month of May we had 12. Then it went down to 6, and we're in the month of July. So far there's been 1 that's been Sano where that was reported. I'd like to show the correlation here. If you notice, Chad and Bodie came and spoke to us at the end of March. We denied their request, and so what happens? The Sharks came. We got some vengeance. Is it a coincidence or is there a correlation? I put a Venn chart in there because those always look cool in any presentation. There's a quote I saw. It says, correlation does not equal causation except when Mr. Paul Walker and Sharks are involved. That was said by myself today. And so, therefore, does the city of San Clemente build that Paul? That's the question. No. No, we don't. Because it would require public funds, we got a lot more important things to do. However, being that I thought that was the most fun we've had in a council meeting this year, and we don't have that kind of nickelback money that Chad has, you know. We don't quite, have Bodie's panache, and so we got things to worry about, like toll roads coming through our town, hospitals going away, all these sorts of questions. So I did something very generous, and I'd like to think I stemmed the problem by myself because I had this built in the beginning of June, and since then the shark sightings have gone down tremendously. I have made a Paul Walker statue right here. There we go, Paul Walker statue.
Wow, with the city logo.
Yes, it is, and on the front of it, it says, "For the gnarly times." And for anyone in San Clemente that is struggling, I am going to leave this up in City Hall here, and for anyone that's struggling right now or needs a little inspiration, you can come up and hang out with Mr. Paul Walker as captured right now. And by the way, this doll cost me way too much on eBay. I'm going to throw that out there right now. But this is going to be up here for now. I would like to have him up in the city offices, if you wouldn't mind giving him a little desk space up here. You can, but you have to pay me a fee every time you get your picture taken with him. I'm just kidding. But here he's going to be up in City Hall. He's got the city seal, right, on both sides of it here. Like I said, I went to really unhealthy extremes on making this. This guy's got his Nike kicks on. He's looking pretty. Came with all sorts of accessories, like an MP5 and lots of guns. I didn't think that would be appropriate for City Hall. So anyway, I had this made. Yes, and so for those who are feeling a little melancholy, for those who are looking for a beacon of headlights on the dusty road, Mr. Walker will be up at City Hall. You can come visit him. We have wonderful staff up here that can also keep you company. And so that is something that is hopefully will keep the shark problem abated into the future now that we have Mr. Walker and we paid him homage.
And I was thinking, though, that, by the way, it is very melancholy. But I was thinking that he shouldn't be standing on a pair of seals, that maybe he should be riding a shark. That would.
You know what? The thing is, he defeats sharks, so it would be inappropriate to have those going on there. I'm actually sincere about this. I had this built in early June. Shark sightings dropped off a cliff, so I'd like to take credit for that, for showing some initiative here. So. Why not? We take credit for everything else.
You have our seal of approval.
Yeah, so to Mr. Chad and Bodie, thank you for coming. In 6 years on council, that is the most viewed act we've ever had in these council chambers. And so we'd like to appreciate him for bringing some awareness here. And by the way, when you come up here to visit Mr. Walker, we're going to have lots of toll road information that you could also peruse right next to it. So you can get a little bit of education out of it too. So anyway. No public funds, but Tim Brown is happy to pony up and bring Mr. Paul Walker to San Clemente.
Before we get off the Paul Walker topic, I just want to say a couple words. I didn't appreciate Bodie calling me out. So this is a challenge, Bodie. I challenge you to surf off any place, anywhere, as long as it's in San Clemente. I will smoke you. That's number one. Number two.
What about Chad? I mean, he's
Chad
probably
didn't call
on
me
tour
out.
with Nickelback.
No, he didn't call me out. So,
Bodie.
So I'm good.
Okay.
On a serious note, I know that everyone's joking about Paul Walker, but one of the things that I found interesting when these guys brought Paul Walker up is that Paul Walker actually does a lot of good for not only this country, but worldwide. He has a nonprofit, or he had a nonprofit that still continues today, called ROW, Reach Out Worldwide. And what he does is he funds FEMA task force, to go out for natural disasters all over the world. And so, as you guys are aware, our federal agencies cover 2 weeks deployment. His nonprofit covers an additional 2 weeks or whatever time period necessary to get those guys out there, not only early, but to keep them late, to ensure that people have access to emergency services during those times.
I will get in touch with that nonprofit. We'll have some material.
Yeah.
Up in City
So,
Hall, too.
it is pretty
That's
cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have anything? You did.
You can't beat that. You guys just go ahead
Yeah,
and just.
we're done.
Can't
I have
top
to
that.
tell you, we went to the tour of the 2-4 Marines on the
Yes.
base, and
Yes.
you left early.
I had to. Yeah.
Okay, you missed out because we went to one of the firing ranges, and 2 of the Marines that were standing there, they said, who from San Clemente City Council is here? And I was the only one that could raise my hand, and they said, she's the mayor, and they said, Mayor, are we going to have a Paul Walker statue? That's what the base wanted to know. So you
And
missed
we can
that.
answer, and the answer to that question is, yes, we do, without a single cent of public funds behind it, so.
Thank you very much for that.
It's scaled to 6 feet.
It is 1 foot tall, so we'll got plenty of folks who could participate and enjoy it.
I'm going to read these.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Oh, you're going to read them? Go ahead.
Yep. So I move that we adopt ordinance number 1642 entitled ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, replacing in its entirety Chapter 8.28 collection and disposal of solid waste and changing the title to solid waste management, amending Chapters 8.68 entitled solid waste reduction and recycling, and replacing in its entirety Chapter 8.69 entitled waste management plan for certain construction, demolition, and renovation projects.
Second.
Motion by Ham, second by Doncheck. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 1643 entitled ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, amending Chapter 9.04 of the San Clemente Municipal Code, offenses against public peace and decency, to prohibit aggressive solicitation.
Second.
Motion by Ham, second by Swartz. All in favor? Passes 5-0. Anyone like to read the adjournment? Anyone else?
I move that we adjourn to the next regular council meeting, August 15th, 2017, in the council chambers located at 100 Avenida Presidio, San Clemente, California, closed session at 5 p.m., the regular business meeting 6 p.m., and for those that are watching, the regular city council meeting of August 1st was previously canceled.
Motion by Doncheck, second by Ham. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Good night, everyone.